We realized this wasn't a real estate leads problem. This is a internet leads problem, right? Every business that relies on inbound leads deals with this issue. Their sales teams deal with the pain point of trying to get a hold of people, and only to get a hold of people that are not the right fit.
Welcome to Agents of Scale. I'm Wade Foster, co-founder and CEO of Zapier. On this show, I sit down with leaders transforming their work and their industries with AI and automation. Today, you'll hear from Avi Tal, co-founder and head of product at Verse.ai. Avi and his brother started with a simple problem in real estate: agents wasting leads because they couldn't follow up fast enough. What began as a human-powered texting service evolved into an AI-first platform trusted by enterprises across real estate, mortgage, healthcare, and beyond. This is a conversation about scaling responsibly, blending humans and AI, layering automation one step at a time, and turning customer pain points into durable growth. Avi, welcome to Agents of Scale.
Hey, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. So excited to have you here. Verse is an awesome company. Y'all have had some big milestones recently. You made the Deloitte Fast 500. You're acquired by NICE. A lot of success that has come your way. Congratulations. But let's start at the beginning. Like, how'd you come up with the idea for Verse? Like, where did this whole thing start?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's been quite an evolution. Started very differently 12 years ago, and the original business was solely focused on real estate and specifically helping real estate agents. So that was born from my brother and co-founder David, who was a real estate agent, then a broker, and he was spending a lot of money generating leads for his brokerage from Zillow, Realtor.com, etc., and came to realize that his agents were just really poor at the follow-up and getting a hold of people, and the leads were low quality. And that was where the idea was originally born, was really to help him and his team and create a system to automatically follow up, engage with leads, and tee up appointments for his agents. And that was kind of the initial light bulb moment of, hey, this could be productized and sold to other agents. And so originally we were just real estate agent focused. And then over the years, we started setting up bigger brokerages, bigger companies, public companies. And it went from working with one-man, businesses, real estate agents, to teams, brokerages, brands. And then mortgage companies started to reach out and say, hey, could you do this for us too? And so we kind of opened up to the mortgage space, which is still real estate related. Then we had a friend that had a solar company here in San Diego, and he had the same issue. And we realized this wasn't a real estate leads problem. This is a internet leads problem, right? Every business that relies on inbound leads deals with this issue. Their sales teams deal with the pain point of trying to get a hold of people, and only to get a hold of people that are not the right fit, right? So the common in tech, we have SDRs, and kind of automating that SDR function. So yeah, it just kept expanding, and the business was originally called Agentology, very real estate related. We rebranded it to Verse right before COVID, and that was the word verse kind of out of the converse or conversations. And we started just working with anybody. So now we work with healthcare companies and higher ed to universities, and really no more like SMBs. Like we have a more of an enterprise, I think, focus as we started to evolve the company over the years.
Love it. So our folks really love to understand like the operations, the details behind the scene. Talk to us about that first year of operations. Like how was everything set up? How did you fulfill these the promise to these early real estate agents that you were working with?
Yeah, I mean, so it was 100% tech in the beginning. It was human powered. So we were literally, our little brother was the first one to start literally texting people. So he was texting leads on behalf of the real estate agents. So, and then we started to, do some technology, but it was in Salesforce. And so we were like hacking Salesforce to manage more kind of SMS at scale, and hiring people to manually manage those SMS conversations. So that was the beginning. We did as much as we could until we basically broke Salesforce and pushed it to its limits, and then built our own app that was more scalable and kind of integrated with Twilio directly, and started doing some more modern things to do this at scale. And as we started doing that, we started to automate things. And so obviously easy to automate a first SMS, easy to automate SMS drip, which is a big, a value prop of what we do is nurturing the leads later on. But we were still kind of hybrid, some automation and then humans to manage responding to people that were responsive. And then later on started to work in the AI stuff. So in the beginning it was, NLU, NLP, training our own machine learning models to understand very guided, directed, conversations. Then obviously with the LLMs, it just got way better, and it kind of brought to life a lot of the conversation that may have seemed robotic at times, and just made it better and better. And we it came out in the perfect time, and we really were able to take advantage of it and take it to the next level from there.
So you're doing all this stuff through text message, through Salesforce is what it sounds like. And you're hiring, are these contractors, are these full-time employees? Like, how are you finding these people that are like, just basically it sounds like talking to leads on behalf of your customers? Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. It was like building a call center in San Diego, but for texting. And so, yeah, we were hiring them in-house. We had a whole floor, and we were, we just kept hiring more and more people. We started dabbling with outsourcing as well. And so we had a call center in Tijuana. So we were in San Diego. Tijuana is just 20 minutes away from downtown San Diego. So we hired we worked with a partner there to scale and do more 24/7 stuff. And then we started working with BPOs in India and the Philippines. But we always maintained a workforce, and to this day in the U.S. and in San Diego primarily, that was there to do the more advanced kind of I'd say like tier 2 support kind of stuff, but for our business.
So okay, was there then a particular moment when either you all were like, okay, this is like this approach is too painful, or was it, hey, we actually found a better thing that would sort of help us automate, that would help us do this? Like, walk us through that inflection point where you're like, okay, we're doing something different here.
Yeah. I think we were actually pretty lucky that we started off human first. So we were all human powered in the beginning, and that gave us, and it still to this day gives us, an advantage, because we don't need to force automation. We don't need to force an automated response if the system's not confident enough to make that determination. So you'll see a lot of solutions out there that are fully automated, and you kind of know you're speaking to a bot because it feels automated. And if you go off script, it kind of has a canned response letting you know, hey, I'm just an automated system. I didn't quite catch that. Can you please, respond A, B, or C or something like that, right? And with our approach, since we were 100% human at first, we started layering in automation and just like piece by piece automating what the humans were doing. But that allowed us to not force automation, and also the humans were training the AI always, and to this day. And so we built this system where the humans are not necessarily free typing; they're actually categorizing and clicking on we build out these kind of flows, kind of like you would imagine like a drift bot, right, on the back end, right, like a whole decision tree flow. of what a conversation, how a conversation should go, and the humans would basically pick the answer on behalf of the consumer. If the AI wasn't confident enough to know yes means yes or something, if it's like a really long-winded way of saying yes, then human clicks yes, the next thing is sent, and now we know, hey, that long sentence to this question, right, that we asked means yes. And so that
Mm,
was, that's a simple way of saying it, but we really leveraged the humans to help reinforce the AI, and we had the benefit of having a workforce 24/7 that we can
yeah.
leverage to help do that.
Now, one thing I think a lot of folks struggle with is, they want to automate, they want to bring this capability into the business, but they don't exactly know where to start. Um, Walk us through that, like how you think through the like when do you go to automate something? Like how do you find those like bite-sized bits that you can sort of start simple and then expand over to something bigger over time?
Yeah, I think, what's the pain point, right? I think that, salespeople want to spend their time having meaningful conversations, right? Spend their time purposely with the right people, and it's really demoralizing for salespeople to be cold calling and to not be able to get a hold of somebody, or they get a hold of somebody and the person says buzz off, right? And it's just you have to get rejected so many times, and that's normal for sales. But um, what we do is we give salespeople leverage, and we automate the mundane stuff. We don't want to replace their job, right? They're the salesperson. They're gonna be the best person to have the meaningful conversation. We want to just automate the 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 very top of funnel stuff so that they can spend their time. Salespeople can spend their time with the right people at the right time, having the right conversation.
So a big part of this has been, the emergence of AI as these language models work really well for the types of stuff you all are going to do. When was the moment that you all realized like, oh wow, this really can change how we work on this stuff?
It was scary at first, right? It was kind of overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and stuff is changing so quickly still, right? Week by week. So it's uh, still learning really, and still really exciting times ahead. I think that we just knew that we can really just make everything better. We didn't necessarily need it, but it would improve the quality of the interactions by having that more generative approach. And at the same time, clients were asking for this stuff too, which is, they're now looking out for this. We were actually hiding the ball on AI until OpenAI came out, because
Mm,
or ChatGPT came out, because people didn't trust it until ChatGPT came out. It was, they preferred um, kind of a outsourcing to humans to do like a call center, and so we had a very tech enabled approach to that,
mm-hmm.
but we would shy away from using the term AI a lot, even though we were using AI, because our clients didn't want that. When ChatGPT came out, it completely flipped, and everybody was seeking this, and so we changed the name from Verse.io to Verse.ai. But we were actually already using AI. We weren't just saying it, and now we just didn't have to hide the ball so much, and we can really lean into it, which was nice.
That's a fascinating pivot. Like, how did that impact like your ideal customers like reaction to you all guys? Like literally saying like, oh, .io to now it's .ai, and like it's much more front and center.
Yeah, I think it from a marketing perspective, it definitely created more demand,
Yeah.
and it was in some ways just easier to start, conversations with prospects and people. Like again, people were seeking this, and it was fun to start talking about it, because again, we were already
Mm-hmm.
doing it, but it was fun to start talking about it and teaching our customers how we leverage AI, and go from there.
So you all are using generative AI before it's trendy. Um, how did your team embrace it, like, and respond to using this as a new technique in the business?
So from like I'd say unrelated to our product itself, like as a business, right? The ability to leverage it from the engineering team to leverage it to, the marketing team to leverage it for content and every salesperson to leverage it for emails. I mean, that has like I'm sure you guys and has been amazing and huge productivity booster, and that's been awesome. And then it's been a learning curve, right? Because we're kind of having to push people, hey, you need to be using these tools, and it's a new normal and a new habit that you have to learn. But once you get into the flow of that, it's like you can't go back. And I can't imagine not having this crutch or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
It's such a game changer and a productivity booster. So yeah, we've just been all in. And what's cool is that because we're integrated with OpenAI directly as a pretty big customer of theirs, then we have access to all the tools, and we give those tools to our whole team to leverage as well.
Yeah. What how much of it is you and your co-founders like tops down saying like, hey, mandate, gonna do this? How much of it is like bottoms up, here's a cool tool, go find it, play, dabble, explore, all that sort of stuff? Is it one more than the other? Is it a mix? Like, how does that work?
I think it's a mix. I think that we're seeing more and more people request from the bottom requesting up, hey, can I get access to this tool, right? And it's not just OpenAI, but other tools around coding or design tools, right? And like a lot of people are on like the free plan, and that's when I know they need it, when they're feeling the pain of like needing more, right? Because they're hitting their limits and all that, and that's that. So I always do that. I put people on the free plan when they request it because I want to see, are they really going to use it? If they're really going to use it, they're going to hit their limits and then request. Then I'm happy to give them the premium version. So I'd say it's been a mix. Obviously guiding people, not forcing, but like teaching and check this out, and then letting the bottom up also bring things to light, bring things to light that I've never heard of either, which is awesome. So it's a whole sharing, information sharing world now that's pretty cool.
Is there something you learned of recently that's kind of blowing your mind?
Yes, but I can't remember. I feel like every 2 days or something.
Right?
So I wouldn't know what to pick, but I mean, I've been messing around with some of these, vibe coding tools. I'm not an engineer, so this is like so cool for me to be able to do things like that. So, tools like Replit or Lovable or Bolt. I've been using Bolt most recently, and it's been pretty sweet to do like front end prototyping. So like what you
Yep.
used to do in Figma, which you probably still should do in Figma, but just like even before getting to the point where you want to design something really with all the layers all perfectly organized. This is just like a quick and dirty way to show them what I'm thinking, right? Like, hey, and you can do such cool things and just tell the AI kind of what to do and give it a screenshot and say, make it look more like this. And it just creates kind of this front end prototype that I don't know if like that's what you're supposed to be using Bolt for, but that's what I'm kind of hacking it to do cool design prototyping as a way to, to share kind of what I'm thinking or think of new
Yeah.
ideas. And that's been really fun.
How does a tool like Zapier show up in your stack? Do you remember like the first time or the first use case that you all had?
Yeah, so Zapier was how we integrated with our customers and their CRMs. That was the primary initial purpose of it, is how do we get the new lead records when they're created in the CRM to immediately sync to Verse. And originally we created native integrations directly, and this was when we were just with real estate agents, and so it was native integrations with some very specific real estate CRMs like Boomtown and Real Geeks, and that was all we knew at the time. If I had known, that, and that became hard to maintain, and it became very restrictive and limiting in terms of what we could do, right? Because it was like however we decided it was going to work is how it worked, and then the next customer comes in and he's like, actually, I need it this way, and so it was always a headache. And Zapier was our solution to that. And interestingly enough, we started using Zapier without having a Zapier app. And I think a lot of people don't realize that like you can use it to connect an API to another API, right? Through the webhooks, basically Zap and Zapier. And that's my favorite thing to do because it gives me the power of makes me feel like an engineer, right? Like I have the power of what I would typically need an engineering team for. And people are always scared when they get an API doc, right? And it's like, oh, how are we going to do that? And we have to, meet with the engineers and scope this out, etc. And actually, no, you could just do it in Zapier. Just tell them to send the payload to this endpoint that you generate in Zapier. You catch it, you format it the way you want, and then you post it to another API. And it's like I learned how to post stuff I learned about APIs because of Zapier, and I learned how to literally post stuff to other people's APIs from doing it within Zapier, just like trial and error. And that has been the most powerful thing. So we started using it to solve the problem of integrating with CRMs that we didn't have native integrations with. And then we realized this was much better. And we then built our own Zapier app for Verse. So the Verse Zapier app is a direct mirror reflection of our API. And so every time our API gets updated, we update Zapier, and they always have the same exact functionality.
Walk us maybe through like a real example now of how you're using Zapier to orchestrate automation across a particular problem in the business.
So there's the Zapier that we use for our customers, and so this is how we integrate with their CRMs, right? And so that's basically, hey, something happens to CRM, send data to Verse, and then something happens in Verse, update the CRM back, and that's that works great. We even the conversations that Verse powers over SMS log into Salesforce or HubSpot as activity history or engagement history through Zapier. And so we're able to do the full sync and full real-time integration with the CRMs, and that's great. But we obviously also use Zapier for the business, and that's like primarily like notifying Slack channels like when something happens. So being really proactive. The engineer team uses it with like Datadog, and like errors are happening, and it posts to an alerts channel. One of the coolest things that we've been able to do is when I realized that I can connect a MySQL database as like an app in Zapier. So that meant that I can do very custom things for the business or for customers. And so if a customer needed a very specific email notification on a very specific thing that happens, it kind of sucks to create a Jira ticket and go through and do a very custom thing just for one customer. But with Zapier, I can just do it, and I don't need any engineers. I could just connect the SQL database, the read-only SQL database, and when a record is created and it meets a certain criteria, and then step 2 is like run a query and join a couple tables to get some more data, and then step 3 is send an email, or make a Slack channel post. And that's been, I think, the coolest thing is being able to do things that the engineering team doesn't even know I'm doing. And like that you would typically think like, oh, this is an engineering thing. And no, I can connect directly to the database, listen for changes that I'm looking for, run queries, that join, tables and whatnot to get data, and then post that data however I want to wherever I want. And that's been pretty nice.
So you talked a lot about, hey, I can do like these things that otherwise I'd need engineers. You mentioned that a couple times. Like how maybe is that the primary way you're assessing impact for tools like this? Whether it's AI, whether it's Zapier, whether it's automation, or are there other things that you all are doing to like better understand the ROI? I think as folks are getting used to these tools, they're like, okay, they're cool, they're interesting, but like, show me the impact, right? CFOs, CIOs, I need to see the impacts. Like, do you all have a sense for like how you think about the impact of these tools on your business?
Yeah, I mean, we recently kind of went through this because after being acquired last year, our parent company is like looking at everything, and they hadn't really like Zapier's not an approved vendor, right? So it's like getting the scrutiny of like, do we need this, and the ROI as well. And I think it's super clear that the ROI, that it's way more costly to manage direct integrations with third party CRMs, and to maintain them and to build them, and they're not as good, right? And so the ROI is there for us, because of that, because of the product integrating with CRMs, and then everything else is just free basically, right? Because the ROI is already there, and so then we can leverage Zapier to do everything else. So we're a little bit different because we have Zapier almost like an OEM, integrated with the product. It's how we power integrations, and then of course we leverage it for the business. Whereas other companies might just leverage it for the business, and they have to decide, is this, worth it, or can I figure out how to post to Slack directly from, their API, something like that. So, but for us, it's kind of an easy decision because the ROI is clearly there from the customer side of the house.
That formula is fairly consistent though, where, there will be like one or two use cases where it's the ROI is so insane that it's just obvious. And then everything else that happens with it, you're like, great, it feels like we got it for free, because we didn't have to bother, whether that's Zapier, whether it's an AI tool, or whether it's da-da-da-da. But I think it's those folks maybe haven't quite identified like what are those like pillar one or two use cases where it's like, holy cow, this really has changed the business.
And the goodwill that you gain from your customers, right, when you solve their integration problems, right? Because usually it's the customer's job to figure out how to integrate with our API, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're able to just solve these problems so easily. And the like when we got acquired, we've been onboarding some of the nice customers into our product as well. And they have direct integrations with like Salesforce and whatnot, and their customers have, they started, basically I just started helping their like customers with their Salesforce needs unrelated to Verse, like just because it's so easy and we know what we're doing with Zapier and all that, and we could solve certain problems for them. As we started talking to some of these new customers, and they started telling us about their challenges with Salesforce and doing certain things and unrelated to kind of Nice or Verse, I started lending a hand and just saying, hey, I could solve that for you, like no problem. And that, like, the goodwill that you gain from solving people's Salesforce problems by, and it's so easy, it's like, why not do it? And by leveraging Zapier. And so that's, I don't know how you quantify that, but that's pretty important.
So, y'all have scaled quite a bit. You're now part of a larger company. How has automation, how has AI like changed how you think about scaling? How you think about growing operations compared to what you were doing before?
I mean, we can all do so much more now, right? So it's definitely changing the way we think about hiring, right? And like what can we do more, right, with less people because of these tools, and especially evident in the R&D organization, but marketing and elsewhere. I think that's one aspect of it. The other is that there's definitely a lot of top-down pressure because there's a lot of, I would say, stress and fear, right, around AI,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's hard sometimes to balance the pressure because things are changing so fast, right? That it's like, we can't be so reactive either. So it's a balance, but at the same time, we have to, and we're a big publicly traded company, and we have to innovate and have a focus on AI as part of that. So
Yeah.
it's it's kind of a necessary thing that everybody must do to stay competitive, and that's how we're thinking about it.
So you all were, ahead of the game working with this stuff. Obviously, you're playing around with these tools, not just playing around, but actually deploying them pre-ChatGPT. And a lot of our a lot of folks are still trying to figure out how do we roll these out in our businesses, what functions, what use cases, things like that. Um, Maybe start by sharing a little bit about where like was AI fastest adopted. It sounds like in the core product, in these text message flows, things like that, versus maybe where was the uptick slower, and why do you think that is?
I think that I don't think the uptick has been really slow anywhere else, but I think that the
Yeah,
that you know the new stuff is like, hey, how can I help just every business department and every business
yeah,
unit, right? And that's where it's exciting. Um, and at the same time, our core focus is SMS, and SMS on its own is challenging, and it's gotten more challenging over the years to do at scale, and so that's still part of what we bring to brands and companies is, hey, we help you manage SMS, manage the compliance, manage SMS at scale, manage all your numbers, do all the A2P, do all the kind of error handling, um, and and so that's a whole problem of its own that like a lot of people get freaked out about AI and it's gonna replace everything, but it can't. You know, it's still what Verse does is we help you do it over SMS and at scale and compliantly, and that's where I think we still have an edge. Um, so that's like I said, there's a lot of fear I think in the market around like AI is going to replace everything, and I think that we need to just um, be have equanimity and not be so reactive and just keep learning and keep learning and taking it all in because it's changing so much
yeah.
and so sometimes it's good to just sit on the sidelines for a little bit, not change too much of the product because it's going to keep changing.
Well, speaking of some of that, like fear, uncertainty, etc., what kind of communication did you do to the company on this? Did you provide training? Did you provide enablement? Did you have like internal champions? Yeah, like how did you sort of like do that? Like, I don't know, crawl, walk, run, sort of cadence there.
Yeah, in the beginning, every man for himself, learning things, right? And like I said, it was like party tricks in the beginning, right? Everyone's sharing like making poems and whatever it was doing when it first came out. Um, we started really showing the different departments and in the company how you can leverage it. We, pretty early on, or when ChatGPT released custom GPTs, where you can kind of upload a bunch of stuff. So like for our R&D organization, we like uploaded all of our Confluence articles, right? All of our documentation, so that our customer success team can just ask it questions, right? How do I set up a new Twilio phone number for a client again, right? And it just like gives you the instructions out of our documentation. So we started to show the business how it can be used, and then people started to do things themselves, which is the coolest part, because that's the cool thing is like people can just take it and run with it and make their own custom GPT, and so we gave people the tools and to kind of create stuff on their own, and that's where some of the best stuff has flourished and come out of.
If you had to give advice to another founder, another CEO, another executive, etc., who is trying to do what you did in terms of like actually making AI like a real part of how the company operates, from every step between like embedded into the product to embedded into company operations. Like, what is that one piece of advice?
Yeah, I mean, if you were starting a company today, you're not going to need as many people, right? And so I think and we're seeing that. I mean, it's insane how few employees these businesses have, right? Like that we know about, like Replit or Cursor or whatnot. So that needs to be fully embraced, and it's harder to do when you didn't start off that way and you're kind of layering stuff in. But if you're starting that way from the start, that I would advise people to be really intentional about that, and every single department needs to have this. Assume that you're gonna have your AI accountant, and assume that you're going to have, all of these things. And so be tread carefully, in terms of how you start to scale this, because it's harder to unwind some of that stuff. But But it's super exciting to be able to start new companies with such few people. So I would just think about embracing that. You don't need to raise as much money anymore, and at the same time, because of that, really think about profitability from the very beginning. Right, the times have changed, and that is more important. Sustainable profitability, and so think about that from the start, and leverage AI to make that happen.
Love it. Last question for you, Avi, to leave with the folks. What is your favorite automation you built? The one that just has like a special place in your heart.
The one that's connected to the MySQL database. That and there's a few things that trigger off of that. Our app has our customers are able to rate conversations, so they're rating the AI, and it's positive ratings, negative ratings, and we want that feedback loop. And if anything's ever negative or positive, we post it to the customer success team channel for them to be like notified and be on top of it. And that's probably my favorite one. But because I was able to connect to the SQL database, which my engineering team doesn't love, but it's a read-only database, and it's like, hey, I could, now I can do all these things. Like, we don't need to build all these custom things. How am I ever going to change it if I let an engineer build it, right? I can't then change the add a new thing or add a new filter criteria or change the email template. So being able to just have that power of, being an engineer basically to do these things is awesome. And yeah, connecting to your database, you can do so many things, right? Anything that you want to listen for and be notified about, or if a customer wants a custom email notification when something very custom happens, you could make it happen just by connecting your database to it.
Love it. Thanks for coming, Avi. This was a great chat.
Yeah. Thank you, Wade. Good to talk to you.
All right, folks. Thanks for listening to Agents of Scale. Avi's story shows how blending humans and AI step by step can create durable growth. If you found this inspiring, share it with a colleague thinking about scaling AI in their business. And don't forget to follow Agents of Scale wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Wade Foster. See you next time.